I am working on my own animated cartoon pilot using Adobe Character Animator. And this is taking forever. That's why when posting this video, it's been, I don't know, maybe half a year since I posted the last one. And I really want to do this more because it's a lot of fun. And if you see that the same, you should hit that subscribe button because that will actually help me and support this channel and will enable me to make more of these kind of videos. So right now I'm working on this scene right here, and of course it's not finished because it's taking ages, but the background is kind of finished. So I'm going to show you today the process of how I got there. So the very first thing I did, I tried to draw the stuff that I had in my head, like make a first sketch. Because it's easy to change something, you don't have to model anything, you can just draw it in, erase it out, you can just go crazy. And here you see me drawing in the background. The way I imagine that is just silhouettes, like inside it's just silhouettes, and the action, the storytelling will happen on the balcony. But I want to see that there are people in the background. This scene actually happens around like a New Year Eve party. Most New Year's parties, they're kind of boring because everyone has these high expectations, and in the end they are kind of mediocre. And that's what I wanted to kind of transport. So now I would draw in the characters, roughly how I want to have them sitting there. And this face is also good for positioning and posing them, because the kind of posture they have while sitting there, it also tells us a lot about the situations, what mood they're in. So now here you can see I'm kind of erasing everything below this line. I kind of decided not to animate that, not to draw that. And I have to say about myself, I'm kind of an eraser. Like, just to clear my head, I will just erase things. And sometimes I just erase things I might need later. Trying to get better at that, but it still happens to be sometimes, like in this case. I should have just left that in because I will need it later. The main character, which is Sam on the left, maybe I'll change the name later, it's kind of a placeholder. That's basically the main character, and this guy on the right, who's called Red at the moment, is kind of the imaginary alter ego or imaginary friend. The story will be Sam, throughout the story, actually becomes friends with Red, which means he becomes friends with himself. Still have to figure out the details, but that's kind of mainly the storyline. And now I move to modeling everything in 3D. Oftentimes I would just do way too much. In the early stages of the series, for example, I thought, okay, I will just build the whole town. So I have everything, and I just, like in real life, I can just go there with my virtual camera and I can just cross that off my list, basically. I will just have all the backgrounds because I built a whole town, which is insane. You should always just build whatever is in frame. Anything else is insane, I can tell you right now. It's hard for me, but I also try to not measure everything because it will look to some degree more organic. And also was important to me, as you see me experimenting with it here, I learned that color palettes are way more important than you would think. So I was thinking early on about the color palette. In this case, I wanted to have like of course it's night and it should look like a moonlight scene. So I went with a kind of a purple. I wanted to contrast that with a yellow, which will be the light that's coming from the inside of the house. So now I'm starting to use the Lightning Boy shader, which is my favorite toon shader. I'll put a link in the description. And I really like a lot of things about it. You can just, by the press of a button, set up your whole scene for the basic toon lighting. I think we should actually look into this a little bit closer. So I created a little example project here. So now I want to make this look like it's toon shaded. I'm going to go to shading up here, to viewport shading, go down here into this little area, press N, which will bring up this menu over here. And if you correctly installed Lightning Boy Shader, you will have this little tab here. Just set up the base scene, which will give us all the basic lights and everything we need. The only thing I have to do now is a base material. So this will give this a base material. So the first thing you have to know, if you go in here and you get the node tree, by pressing H, you will unfold these nodes and you will see all the options. You can even create more of these nodes. You can press Shift A, you can go to LBS nodes, and there you can create another specular, another key light, stuff like that. Most of the time I don't use a specular, except if I want to show something metal or glass, but I'm going to delete this now. We're just going to work with these two basic things, and that's what I mess with most of the time. So the basic color is basically the shadow you see here. That's the color down here. I can also remove that. Then you will just have a silhouette. But this way you will have also a light color. So what I do sometimes, set a color here. You can get all crazy now. You can just say, okay, I want to have a crazy color here, and it will be whatever you choose. But if you don't want this crazy stuff, what you can do is press Shift A and get a curves node out, plug that into the color, and then say, okay, well, I want to have the color that comes out of here, in here. And now if I go up a little bit with this, it's basically going to do the trick. And I only have to set this color now. So if I change this, let's change it to our favorite color. Let's say pink, something like that. I'll maybe make it a little bit brighter. Now what I always do is turn down the softness. Now this still looks a little bit weird, mainly due to our main light, which is this one. In the key light here, you will see here which light is influencing this key light. Press R for rotate. And let's say you want to rotate it on the x-axis. And now I'm going to rotate it around the z-axis, so it's more from the side. You can also play with the range, so you can say, okay, I want to fill in more. So one more thing I want to show is give the eyes glow. So now we go here, like this. Okay, this one, then you press this little number and it will make it a unique material. I'm going to assign it, and now I'm going to say, okay, I don't want this to be pink, I want this to be kind of a yellow. So now, if I go into the color now here, set this to something more than 1, it will actually start to glow. Let's set this to 2. You can see now it changes its appearance, but it still doesn't glow. So the one thing you have to do, you have to go into your render settings and you have to activate bloom. To really see this effect, it should be kind of dark, then you will see it. Or another thing I want to show, I will just go back to the world here. The last thing I want to show is how to create the outline around the geometry. For that we have to create a camera, so I will do that real quick. Press numpad 0 to get into this camera, press N in the viewport, and view, and camera to view. Now if I move my view in the viewport, I will move the camera. Okay, maybe like this. Drag this out of this collection, because we're going to use this collection for creating outlines. So now I'm going to go back in, going to remove this so I can move around freely without altering the camera. So now I have to create a grease pencil object, which I do with Shift A, blank object, which will also land in the collection. We don't want that, we want that outside. We are going to select that, go into the modifiers tab of this grease pencil object. We're going to choose line art, which is here. And now we can say collection, this first collection up there. We can say, okay, which layer do we want to use? And then you're going to choose a material. There's just only one there. I mean, if you want a different color, you have to obviously change it, but I always use black, so it's fine. Since this is an organic object, it doesn't look as great as on the balcony scene. So that's also a reason why I draw my characters and don't create them in 3D, because this is always a lot more tricky. So inside of the modifier, you can basically change the lines, thickness. And as you can see here, once you move out of the camera, it looks kind of shitty because it only looks good from the camera angle. So maybe let's try a different object. There you go. So now you can also see why I use this technique for backgrounds and hard surface stuff and not so much for organic things. And here you can see me dialing in the color for the inside lighting. And I think the glow is really giving a nice touch to the whole scene. The audio will be kind of muffled, I would say, because it's behind the windows, it's behind the wall, but it's also visually very loud. And I think that's very important to the scene because it has to be very obvious that there's some kind of party going on in the background, while there's this very quiet scene in the foreground. I really like that contrast. Now I'm just taking the railing, I duplicated it and altered the path and made a door handle out of it. And you will see me kind of rotating it, moving it a little bit so it becomes more organic. And you can see me doing the same with the windows. And I think that's a really nice touch. You have this pattern, but then again, it's not a pattern really because it has these slight differences in position and rotation. Now I decided that this solid railing of the balcony, that would be too much. I wanted to see through it basically. And now I'm changing it to something that reveals a little bit more about what's on the balcony and basically everything that was hidden before. And that was a step I thought, okay, no, I was trying to tell myself, no, I like it and I will leave it like that. But I had to admit that it was just out of laziness. I just didn't want to touch it again. I decided to put like a light chain onto the railing of the balcony. And there are ways to do this automatically with physics and stuff like that. But I decided to do it manually again because I had a very specific style and shape in mind, as you can see. And that was actually a good choice. I could really dial in everything. And this is one of the elements that makes this whole balcony really unique. The whole scene, I wanted it to look like someone did like a half-ass approach of making this place nice, but kind of gave up halfway. As you will see in a second, this light chain is kind of hanging down and it's also kind of short. The end of it, where it goes into the wall, is stretching across the balcony. And this is all like, basically, these are all like observations I make in real life. I think that's also something I do. Sometimes you could see me maybe sitting on a balcony like this. And what I would think about is how, like a detail, like how the light chain wraps around the railing or stuff like that. The way it is wrapped around the railing is far from perfect. Like someone really didn't pay too much attention to it. I think that's what I want the audience to subconsciously read from this whole scene, from how it's arranged. It's like, yeah, it's someone had an idea, but they didn't really make an effort. I can't help but make it a little bit tacky, so they won't just be one color, of course. Okay, you can see what difference this makes. Just this light chain alone, what this does to the balcony. All of a sudden, it's coming to life. Next thing I'm gonna do is these kind of things that are also very common in Germany. These kind of wine boxes, as we call them. And people just use them for everything, to sit on them, or they just throw them in the corner because they think it looks nice. So as I said earlier, I wanted to make everything look ordinary and kind of plain, not too inspired. Creating some irregularities, and also some of them are kind of broken, which also plays again into this kind of, okay, someone could have paid more attention to this place. And you can see I'm just building some beer bottles. I want to have different ones. Now it's time to spread out all these bottles, duplicate them. I want the balcony to be full of them. And this phase actually deserves a lot of attention, because these kind of details, these little things, objects that obviously have been used by someone, these things actually bring this whole thing to life. Since the characters, they're hand-drawn and this is 3D built, you always have to kind of find a way to blend everything. For example, in this case, using the bottles that are laying around everywhere, you can break up all these straight lines and make it look less technical. And here you can see me, I'm using a particle effect to put some leaves into the pot that I made. I just want to have a few leaves and I'll also make them like brownish. Again, it should look like a plant that someone put there, nice idea, but no one takes care of it. This is the first element for the background, like inside, behind the windows. And everything in there should be just a silhouette. So that's why you will see me making this thing all one color. And now I had this idea, which actually kind of looks nice, to have a moon in the background. I really like it, but also I didn't like the idea that the angle of light, as you can see, is coming from the front, because I didn't want the balcony to be in the shadow. So it doesn't make sense that there's a moon in the background and the light is coming from the front. So it broke my heart, but I had to remove the moon again. And now I'm using basic planes in the background to create a skyline, basically. So there's something there. Again, I'm forcing myself not to put in too much work, because that is not where the center of attention will be. Here you see me creating trees. Actually, I will change them later. For now, we'll leave them like this. But since this is New Year's Eve in Germany, you wouldn't have these kind of trees. You wouldn't have leaves. They would just be naked, basically. And that what I just did, I really like that there's a tiny little spot of light in the background. That gives a really nice touch to it. You really feel like, okay, there's a city in the background, just because of this little tiny beacon up there. I will most likely make it flash later, if I don't forget about it. So now I'm basically done. I'm trying to figure out the camera movement. Okay, that's the balcony. That's backgrounds for you right there. Whenever I get to build something in 3D and shade it like it was hand drawn, I get really excited. But then again, I didn't really do many backgrounds so far. But I really like this one. I really like how the colors are, and I'm looking forward to actually finishing this scene, which is kind of a test. It's kind of the backbone for the story I want to tell. And this is kind of the stage where the main character, Sam, is talking to his alter ego about his life. And we are going to see throughout this conversation, we're going to see what they talk about, and what they imagine, what they remember, what they went through together, because they've been knowing each other their whole lives and they remember the same things, but both of them kind of differently. In the next video, most likely, you're going to see me placing the characters. I already created them. Now I'm kind of fine-tuning them. I have to figure out what they say, basically. I have to record all of that, and you will see me doing that in the next videos. Until then, hit the like button if you like this video, and if you want to see more of this kind of content, then you should definitely also hit the subscribe button. I see you next time.
If you don't speak, then you won't get spoken to. People only see you when you up, then they notice you. Trying to be a legend, create lines is quotable. Only the real shall last, and I only know a few. People when they feelings always acting emotional. Ain't about a check, then it ain't negotiable. Gotta show respect to the people that's posting you. Soon to be on posters posted up like the older dudes.